Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OTD Military History. Just today, wanted to really celebrate a bit of a milestone. I know it's, in this grand scheme of things on YouTube, not the biggest milestone to hit. I mean, many people are well ahead of me, but it feels pretty good to hit the milestone of 10,000 subscribers. I was trying to hit this in 2023, so we missed it by about 17 days, but that's not too bad. Hitting it pretty soon into the new year. Had a lot of videos, kind of, especially shorts, blowing up lately. So that's really helped contribute to kind of the growth of subscribers and views, everything right now. So I'm pretty excited for that. And yeah, so don't really have much. I didn't have anything in mind. I just wanted to kind of hang out with you guys because today it's a pretty cool day for that to happen. Happened sometime last night. I was asleep in between my dog waking me up every 2 hours. Excuse me, so a bit tired, but yes. So thank you everyone for all the well wishes and everything. It means a lot, and on social media as well. Been at this for a while. So Andreas asks, how long did it take? It's taken quite a while. Started, excuse me, registered the channel in February 2021. Didn't really do anything with it. I just wanted to kind of grab the name so nobody else did, just in case, because there's some people out there like that. But I didn't really start doing things until March 2021. So I did a couple of videos. Most of those are gone now from that early period. Didn't quite work out how I wanted it to go. So I wanted to, I did certain type of videos. I wanted to basically show historical content, and that wasn't allowed for hitting the milestones that you need to hit to get into the partner program, which allows you to monetize the channel, which helps me, run everything. Because I need funds to do this, because it's a lot of work, and this is one of the few, and don't want to talk about it too much, but stress few sources of income from me. Not much in the way of that. So I really needed this to take off. So a lot of those earlier videos were not very good to begin with anyway. And I deleted some of them that I regret doing, but they're gone and I can't find them again. My old laptop kind of blew up on me, so those are kind of gone. But yeah, so it's pretty cool. And we got some people watching here who are well ahead of me. I mean, Rob and JD is really ahead of me with their great content and the way they do things, and obviously an inspiration for me the way they do stuff here. So it's taken almost 3 years to get to this point. It's been monetized for a while now. I'm still trying to get better in that area and trying to get the channel to support me a little bit better with the few things I have going, so I can focus on this and not have to worry about other stuff. But that's for the future. So sure, you can weigh in if you like. I'm not sure what that means, but by all means, go ahead if you want to post a question, or anybody for that matter, anything like that, or anything you want me to talk about. I can talk about more of the experience. And thanks, Norma, for reaching out as well earlier. I appreciate it, and sticking around for as long as you can. So yeah, it's been a slog in some ways. It's been really fun in others. We've done all kinds of different stuff on here, right? We do live streams with others, right? Authors, historians, all kinds of people doing stuff related to military history. Not always Canadian, but sometimes. So that's really cool. I've got more of that coming. Actually, tomorrow, we've got Romain, who's a tour guide in Normandy, coming on. So that's pretty cool. I want to talk about his experiences and what he's done and how he goes about things and all that great stuff. So we'll have him on tomorrow at 2 o'clock, actually, around right now. So tomorrow, so look forward to that as well. And then we got more coming into February, and looking at all kinds of things, from recommendations from people like Scott, looking at a Canadian regiment in the Continental Army during the American Revolution, baseball in the chemical warfare service from the United States Army in the First World War, and that's just some of the stuff coming up. And I got some other stuff kind of batting it around and all that stuff. So I really want to do more of bringing other people on, because obviously my knowledge is limited to certain areas, certain conflicts, and certain time periods. So I want to broaden the base a little bit in that sense. Not even trying to bring different people in necessarily. Just wanting to cover bases and things that I think are fascinating, right? Some channels are just broad history and they do the same. I had that focus, just Canadian only, but that obviously didn't last. I'm trying to do different stuff that just interests me and other people. So trying to hit as many of those. So again, I'm always open to suggestions, and people you might know. Scott's given me lots of great suggestions. Can't always get to them all because of a timing thing and having to do other work, but all that's other stuff. But yeah, it's great to have that variety and then other stuff. So, well, there's a question that kind of ties into this. So, and Sheldrake Dave Patterson, great help with the channel pretty much since the get-go. What kind of content are you hoping to make on your Normandy trip? So that's an excellent question. Different kinds. It's going to be busy. So I'm there for 7 days total. So like touchdown at Charles de Gaulle. Not looking forward to that. And then work my way up to Normandy. I'm actually going to stop in Rouen on the way up because I go right by it anyway, so might as well. So, you know, look at that area, right? Because that's the crossing of the Seine. And I like, you know, I think that doesn't get as much attention. So it's going to be, that's kind of the vibe I'm going for, right? There's been some great stuff, particularly in the inland campaigns that I know Paul Wooditch from World War II TV is always stressing with his knowledge of the ground and the vents and being in Normandy and all that stuff. And I know like people like, well, JD and Rob have done that as well, right? Like JD did the Abbaye, Ardennes, what happened there, unfortunately, and then looked at places like Auty, things like that. And then Rob has done Falaise Gap and other things. So what I want to do is cover those as well and some other ones, but in my way. So I want to go there, get the ground from, you know, how I want to do it. I'm not sure how that's going to happen yet. I'm trying to still work out some ideas with the tech and what is even available at the time and how it goes, right? Because it could be busy with the planting season at the time. I'm going in April, so to do everything in time for the 80th of all these events. But I want to hit the big ones that have Canadian focus, right? Like Totalized, Tractable, the brigade battles that don't get as much attention as they probably should. I mean, they get some, and I don't think they get an in-depth look. So like defending places like Bretteville and JD did Bretteville with Woody as well. Looking at that in depth and using the primary documents that are my bread and butter that I have learned as my academic career in the past and how to do that. So using that to gain stories, to better understand it and kind of weaving what the ground looks like now to get a sense of that and all of that. And why that's important to me, I mean, you can do that without filming it, but as Terry Kopp has mentioned multiple times and really made an impression on me as a new PhD student, especially had I hadn't gone there yet, because I've been to Normandy in the past, is he said you can't really understand the campaign in Normandy without understanding the ground. And I completely agree after being there, because you see all kinds of myths and misrepresentations and all of that stuff that comes to Normandy. Everyone thinks all of Normandy is Bocage, and it's not even remotely close to that. The Anglo-Canadian sector is wide open with these tiny little villages all over the place, right? That are, you know, older buildings that are stone. A lot of that is now gone. The cities around Caen itself have kind of been melted into the city, but I want to pick out the pieces and places that I still can and kind of show different stuff. And particularly the fighting that takes place south of Caen. That's been covered in many ways on YouTube by many, but I want to do it in my kind of way of understanding, you know, maps and what people are trying to do and what they felt at the time, and using all that good stuff like recollections and memoirs and whatever I can get my hands on. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. But there's a list on the Patreon site and for YouTube channel members of all the areas on battles and whatever I want to hit. So it's a big list. I hope I can do it all. I'm not sure how it's going to look yet. Still trying to push off some old projects to start planning these ones, but it's a bit difficult with everything that I got going on. So that is something I definitely want to do kind of in depth, is look at primary docs and integrate them into the videos and show what that looks like now and as much footage as I can get, because there's a whole bunch of great stuff out there and I want to use it as best I can, and I know how to do it. So with my research background, so it's something I'm definitely looking forward to. I saw something about Farley Mowat's book. No Bird saying, yes, you have something about it in the past. Yeah, I talked about it on a show about memoirs, I believe. I think it was that one. I can't remember. You might, if you just Google or put it into my name in the channel, it should come up. It's a good book. It's well written because, you know, Mowat was a writer at heart, even before he really became one. You can just tell he had that natural talent. I've talked about that before because I was doing some digitization of the Hasty P's War Diary. And you can tell it changes the writing and the style, even without knowing who's writing it. And you look down and it's signed by him. So that was really cool to know that he just had this ingrained talent. Now, the historical parts of it, don't take it as gospel by any means. When he writes the books affects how he wrote the books, because he wrote several about his experiences, and a lot of his opinions on things change on stuff like that. So it's not, don't take it as gospel in that sense. It's more of a thing I always say, and others have as well, about the feelings and you know, what's going on. It's not necessarily about using the factual details. But, you know, Mowat's feelings of, say, hitting the beach in Sicily or, you know, the mainland and having those around him get shot and wounded and things like that. It's well covered. So it's a good book. And one day I would like to look at, you know, Mowat's war experience, because I think it's fascinating how much it's documented in multiple ways, right? With the war diaries, because the Hasty P's is a very well-known unit, particularly for Italy. So, and then, you know, his experiences and see what the, not necessarily reality, you know what I mean, the history is, right? Where, you know, Mowat's kind of embellished or made things up because he's said himself, you know, doesn't let facts get in the way of a good story. And he's had all kinds of issues or claims of this stuff in his other work as well, as nothing to do with his military experience. So kind of making stuff up for a good story. So I'd definitely love to do that one day. We'll see in the future. But yeah, it's definitely worth the read. That one in particular, I think is an interesting way of looking at, you know, the Canadian experience in Normandy, or sorry, in Italy, but also of the time it was written. It's fantastic for that. So it's definitely a must read, I think. Just keep those things in mind. Oh, yes. Thank you, Rob. I agree. I'm trying to keep that in mind and, you know, what it might look like in the future and things like that. And not really sure what the future will look like, but it's always been up in the air for me and still is. So good to know that and keep that in mind, though. Oh, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. Do you have a source for World War II topographic maps in Normandy? Yeah, so multiple. Depends what you want. So I use Project 44. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Just put Project 44 in and it should come up. They do all kinds of great stuff with mapping units and putting that on maps of the time and today and where they're moving through. I use them for really quick reference stuff. McMaster, the university in Hamilton, Ontario, sorry, I'm not sure where you're located, has a website where they have all these maps and they're scanned and they're high res. So you can get into the nitty gritty with these stuff. And they have it for so many conflicts and areas and things like that. And it's very well organized and easy to find. I use those when I can and find them. They're really, really cool, mostly Canadian, British. They have World War I trench maps too. Yeah, and then like U.S. Army is good for the American stuff. But those are my big go-tos. Yeah, because it's mostly public domain and it's easy to find. Some other stuff, it can be more difficult. And Library and Archives Canada has digitized some of the topographical maps that they made. But it's no guarantee, and things disappear. Sometimes, like, I know they've been digitized, but then the map will disappear from the database for whatever reason. Can't access it anymore. So don't use that and rely on it alone. But that's just mostly for the Canadian experience. But Project 44, if you're looking for Canadian stuff, is my go-to, and I tend to use the U.S. Army. Actually, I was just doing this now, looking at Cobra and St. Lo for something else. And they have lots of good stuff in the official histories and things like that. And it's great. It's public domain. You can use it for whatever. So it's great to have. So hopefully that's kind of what you're looking for. If not, let me know. Yes, Scott, you are very helpful with the ideas, and you always got lots of good ones. Just I wish I had more than 24 hours in a day trying to juggle everything. Excellent question, Meddy. All the way. All the way. I'm staying right on the beach because it was the cheapest. And they had parking because I need a car because public transit is not reliable for this area and what I want to do. Yeah, so all the way. I'm doing from the landing spot. I probably will get in the channel, not too deep. I haven't been in it before. I know it's cold and I know it's not great, but I'm going to do it just real quick. And all the way to Falaise and the closing of the gap. So like I said, I have to come from Paris to Normandy. So I have to drive through past. I don't have to go in, but I want to. Rouen, because it's kind of like a second Falaise. That's not my phrasing. That's from those who fought in it or who went through there. They got the Germans stuck again, trying to cross the Seine, and just did a whole whack of damage to those who even got out of the pocket. So I guess that's as far inland as I'm going to make it, but that's pretty far. A Normandy story typically, when presented, stops with Falaise and the closing of the gap. I'm going to all those spots. David Curry and the famous photo of him literally in the action of earning the VC. You can go to that spot today and looking at the bridge there and at the river. The river used to us Canadians or North Americans at the creek, but still enough to stop a tank. So I want to get in and look at that again and cover all those different areas and go to the Polish Museum and go there as well and cover that. So I'm hoping to do all of it. This is going to be a busy trip for me. So some stuff might not be, as in depth as I want, but I got to keep moving because I only have a limited amount of time. But I'm going all the way in. Actually, most of the majority of the project is looking at the inland areas because I don't think I'm going to look at other beaches, unfortunately. I don't think I'll have time to touch Sword or Gold really in any detail. I only want to go to Omaha. I know it's been done to death because of that video I made on Stanley Bach, who was a major and a liaison between the two U.S. divisions that landed at Omaha in the first wave. He was part of the first division, lands with the 29th, and that whole mess where they mixed up literally. And he wrote all this down the day of. So I want to cover that and that chunk of the ground as much as I can because it feels like coming full circle to me. Doing that video and finding that document just by chance and then seeing how this ground looks today in comparison to what he's looking at and trying to get a better understanding of Omaha because that comes up a lot. And a lot of people don't understand what was happening. And he was there, literally. He was one of the earlier waves because it was just ultimate chaos when he still got there. Right? It looked like that they hadn't been there and it was a couple hours later. So, and then he's talking about how troops are moving inland. And people are like, oh, Omaha takes all day. And I'm like, well, no, that's not what happened. Just the artillery was still pummeling them. Doesn't mean they weren't working their way inland. So, bit of a digression. We'll see how much that works out with timing. I'm going to try and plan as much as I can, but Normandy is notorious, difficult to get around because of the roads. So I want to stick to the Canadian stuff because that's what I know best, but hopefully cover some of those different stories if I can with timing. I'm going to do as much as I can. Yeah, so I talked about that. Yeah, I'm definitely covering that area. As much as I can. A lot of it's just farmland now, and in the towns. If you don't know it, I didn't pull up any maps, but there's a bunch of little towns that used to be separated south of Caen that run next to the ridge. They used to be separated. Now they're kind of blending together and kind of blending together with Caen. And Dave Patterson was, I think, still here with Point 67, the Canadian Battlefields Foundation. Has set up that as a overlook, so you can see all those towns, and I'll probably start from there and then work my way down and try not to go places that are going to get me in trouble that are somebody else's property. So I don't want to anger some French farmers, but definitely going to cover that and the story of the Black Watch, especially because I found some cool documents related to that and some different stuff I've been working on in terms of what we can do with AV now, as opposed with the documents that I've found of the time and maps today and understanding advances and things like that. So I'm trying to mix those all together with an understanding of the ground and definitely going to do that for that area and then to the east as well, because it's not just the Black Watch, right? I'm not saying you said that, but it's the famous one of Verrier Ridge when there's other attacks going in before they get there. One's going on to the west and all the consolidating that has to go on, especially at Tilly and all of that stuff. So I'm hoping to cover that in as much depth as possible. I've literally started plotting, park the car here, go here to see these different areas of the advance, like with the Hamilton light infantry, the Rileys and things like that. Because this is second division, basically, where they come online is, after Con is taken, and then they start to push south. And had David O'Keefe on talk about that in the past. So I'm hoping to push on with that and look on that and see the issues, because that's also the ground for Totalize, right? So, and operations before that with the Brits as well. So it's a lot to cover. I'm going to cover it as in depth I can and connect these pieces together as best as possible. But I know the ground has changed even since I was there in 2016 since then. So it's best we can do, right? Oh, Rainier, thank you again for your support of the channel. Much appreciated. Sorry, can loan. Yes, as best I can. That one's a tough one for all kinds of reasons, right? The can loan are spread out through numerous British units. The fighting is in very different places than what I've been planning to do. Is cover that maybe a little bit. Again, I got to see how this all timing is going to work. May have to pick one and kind of go with it. We'll see. Like I had Rich Fisher on talking about Reg Fenwick. He was a Canadian, served in one of the Vickers, the heavy machine gun units. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, unfortunately. But he wrote a fantastic memoir about his experience, and he was can loan through and through. Was not getting commission in anywhere in the Canadian Army, and saw the can loan opportunity and jumped at it and fought in Normandy from there on out with them. So maybe that's something I could do, because I already know like Rich has done all that hard work and looking at that stuff, but it would be fascinating to look at. But I'm hoping to cover that in some way, shape, or form, maybe even just visiting a cemetery with some can loan guys in it. I'm not sure yet, but can loan is definitely on the radar and included in the list I'm looking at. Oh, thank you so much for the thank yous. Yeah, I mean, you gotta it's you gotta pick, right? There's so much. I'm there for a week and it doesn't even feel like enough time. There's so much to look at, so many different sites. You got to be picky what you want to do, what you want to see, what you think is important to yourself. Trying to do the Canadian story, and then some others that I've felt are, personal to me and I think are good to know for all kinds of reasons. So that's kind of my focus and thinking. Yeah, the McMaster maps are fantastic. Yes, Mike Bechtel does do fantastic maps. I don't have the money to pay him. And he owns the copyrights and stuff, so I can't use them on here. I'm sure I could ask him, but I don't want to take other people's work. Oh, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. I wouldn't say I'm useful anymore, but I appreciate that. Been trying to do my best, and sometimes my emotions get the better of me, but that's who I am, and I don't apologize for it. Especially in a topic I've been interested in since I was 10. Yeah, 10. Maybe a little even longer. So, it's just something I've always wanted to do, and I hope I get to keep doing it. And doing it with everyone is fantastic. And I forgot Norma's comment too. One of the things about this is, see if I can find it. All the people I've met. Maybe I can save that for the end when you can get a little sappy, but definitely part of this. Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I mean, Aramange is not my place. Favorite place on the planet. It's just what it's turned into and all that stuff. It's not my favorite. I mean, but seeing the mulberries that still survive, it's a fascinating piece of engineering. So to see what's left, it's a fascinating piece to look at. But Aramange just turned into this. What they're worried about, what they call the Disneyfication of Normandy, and that's good and bad in a lot of ways. I talked with Woody, and hopefully we can talk about that more as we get closer to the anniversaries. But I'm just not a big fan of what that place has become. I don't know it any other way, but it's also, not in my Canadian wheelhouse, right? So, but I've been there, done that. But I got a great Airbnb for cheap overlooking Juno Beach, so I'm very excited for that. Yeah, you would think people would want to go inland, but they don't. They know the beaches. because it's well known and it's all over, history and the news every June 6th, and no one goes on past that, right? No one talks about the fall of Khan or Cobra or Blue Coat or whatever. Take your pick. It just doesn't happen, and I think it's a disservice in a lot of ways to the memory, to understanding the history, but also the locations are fantastic. I mean, these places are not war torn anymore. Right, the overlook of where the place gap is a fantastic viewpoint. Right there at the museum. It's amazing just to look over this area, especially if you've worked your way inland. You can see that Normandy has such variation in its geography and terrain and literally like vegetation and things like that. Right, it's wooded hills and things like this. It's fantastic, and a plane running through these these gaps and these hills, and it's just fantastic. But yeah, it surprises me. But then again, my experience was on battlefield tours, so that's what we were there to do. But yeah, I think people are missing out, and also there's great food on the inland as well. So that's one of my motivating factors. Not necessarily for this trip. I'm not really going to be sitting and dining in any fancy French restaurants because I don't have time. I'm probably eating sandwiches on the side of the road, but lots of good stuff in the inland to check out. And Falaise is just a cool city to see for, the castle and its medieval connections. And even past that, there's some William the Conqueror stuff and things all of that nature. Bayeux as well. Bayeux is a pretty cool city, untouched, luckily, from the fighting. So it's still got that medieval character to it, and has the tapestry, which, if you've never looked at it, it's absolutely wild. I mean, yeah, it tells the story of the Norman conquest of England, but the border of that thing is just bonkers. The amount of nudity in that thing is just surprising, and the amount of penises hanging out, it's really weird. But it has to be seen to believed. All the way is Berlin. Well, yes. Well, they didn't make it to Berlin, did they? Not until the Soviets took it anyway. Maybe another trip. But never been that far east. Yeah, I mean, there's tons. There are so many. I mean, it's an industry, right? So it keeps people employed and keeps the story going, which is all important. Just trying to hit them all is nearly impossible. And as obviously as the historian that I am, I want to see the real location and ground and things like that, and especially if it's right there, right? I can do museums anywhere else. But I want to see the ground. I guess that's me. I'm not really like, ooh, there's the kid. I mean, because I see it all the time, maybe here in Ottawa, because we have the War Museum. They got pretty much everything from the war, so I can see that anytime I want. So I don't really need to see it on the ground. But that's me. Museums obviously have a great value and can educate you and gets you connected with some local people who help run them and their stories, and it's a great way for that. But for this trip anyway, I'm going for a different purpose. Yeah, you want to see it all. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of ground to cover. Normandy is not small. Tons going on there, and lots of locations, and keep you busy for a long time if you want to see everything. I mean, you can hit all the beaches relatively easily ish, but after that, it's pretty difficult. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry, wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. Juneau to Holden. I know how far that is, and I've been to both. That is absolutely wild. Wow, good for you. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're just going back here a bit because I'm a bit behind. Yeah, it is hard to do the landscapes, so that's kind of what I still got to think about and how I want to go do it. I've got some ideas in my head of like showing the location and then from a different angle to get a sense of it, and using those reference points, and that's why I think the maps are going to be useful. Sorry, I just have an important message here. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to figure out how that's all going to work. And I think that's where the whole maps will be cool and all that stuff. But again, I got to see what it's like when I get there. If it's not the best weather, it's going to be hard. Right. So, and Normandy weather is not known for being great. So I just got to take what I can get. Yes, the brigade there, the 5th Brigade. I have the book. Always near me from Terry Cobb. Covers it. Right. Yeah, public right away, which is good. Do we have a? Oh no, what? Public right away. Yes, I understand. Which is cool. And hoping I have no trouble. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. Sorry, which memoir? Oh, Cail Officer. Yes, it's Cail Officer from Rich Fisher at the Vickers Machine Gun Association. If you put that in, it'll come up anywhere online. Anyway, yes. Sorry, Norma. That's one of the things I want to do with this series is try to cover these things in depth and look at them for people who can't get there. It's not easy for all kinds of accessibility, money, timing, whatever it may be. So I know it's hard to cover the ground, but covering it, from a, what is it the word I'm looking for? Geographic teacher perspective, it's not the easiest, but any sense of it will be better than nothing. And that's why I was so motivated to do this is the Canadian element is we have maps, and we talked about maps. We love our maps, especially on this channel. We love our maps. And there's many good ones out there, like we said, but getting a sense of what this stuff looks like today, and especially the areas that are unchanged in a lot of ways, is why I'm motivated to do this and present it as best as possible. Because I think this is an important area for Canada and Canada's sense of itself that we don't talk about much in a lot of ways, right? We'll talk about World War I battlefields until we're blue in the face, but Normandy gets no attention in that regard. I don't know why. I mean, I know why. It's complicated and long and boring, but I'm trying to change that a little bit and get this access for people who have not had that opportunity or how it doesn't exist at all, right? Like all the ones I can think of off the top of my head are not discussed ever, right? Like Cartonville Farm or Cartonville Factory, as they called it at the time. I haven't seen that on anything, and it's not the easiest to access, and it is on a public road still, so I'm going to go down there, and there's a tiny little memorial. So like just even getting a bare sense of anything is kind of what motivates me. The original buildings are still there, as far as I can tell, as on Google Maps. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But it's things like that, the little ones like that, and how I can tell stories of what they did there, and how they stalled the German advance, and the things like Gordon Henry from the First Hussars taking out those Panthers leads into that as well, and just trying to cover as much as that, right? Because those stories are lost in the shuffle a ton of the time. And we just keep talking about the same old when I'm hoping to do something a little different. Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll have to write that down after. But yeah, it's there can be something I can definitely do. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the location, that makes perfect sense. And an effort of a can loan. Wow, just one, hey? Not even the association. That's interesting. No, it would make sense given the timing of when these were concentrated. But yeah, that could be a good place to talk about the can loan guys, because they're definitely forgotten. Maybe it was a good place to base out of, depending if you want to do everything. Yes, and that's what most people do. I'm trying to. Oh, thanks, Norma. See you later. I know you're gone a long time ago, but thank you. Yeah, if you're trying to do everything, I'm trying to stay in the British Canadian sector. Might have a longer day poking my way west, but we'll see. Would a bike tour in Normandy area be a good idea? Yeah, if that's something you're into. Yeah. I mean, the only reason I'm stalling is my level of physical fitness is not on par to do something like that. I know people who do it, and I don't know, they're troopers. I am not, but it's a good idea. If you can do that, it's pretty good. Most of it terrain for biking and the sites you can see, and there's little places all over the place so you can stop and hang out. And it's France, so there's cafes everywhere. And cafes are not what us North American things. Sorry, I'm not sure where you're from. I'm seeing a a space shuttle or Saturn V, maybe. So maybe you're American. I don't know. They just sell more than coffee, is what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, there's lots of places to stop, and the countryside is fantastic. I always tell people that, right? Because kind of comes up, and like, what do you got going on? I'm like, well, I'm going to Normandy, and they're like, well, I've never been, and they're like, battles this and battles that, or just D-Day, and I'm like, it's just a great place to go. I had a great experience with the people there, and know tons of Normans now, especially, and just the attitudes and the way they live life and go for it. It's very much admired by me. I couldn't do it the way they do it, but yeah, and if you love seafood, good place to be, because obvious reasons. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, it's yeah, it's pretty much that, right? It's the day trip from Paris, right? It's not that far. People will just, oh, we'll hit the beach on a bus tour and call it that. That's that. And we hit Omaha, and we saw the cliffs or whatever. Actually doing a video about St. Forever right now. But yes, it's basically that, and you see this with the tour groups and things like that. And yeah, that's not a problem for me. I do that in normal life, so it'll just be probably better stuff for cheaper being in France. Yeah, don't go in June because the prices are ridiculous and it's busy like none other. Agincourt, yeah, I'm not going there, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, Calais, yes. I mean, that place is chock full of history. I mean, there's a World War II element there as well. Canadians fought there at Calais. I mean, that was one of the things I thought about, right, is covering the Channel ports and, Dieppe, and that's still Normandy, right? So all of that stuff. But I figured it's not going to work. It's too much. It's too far. And it's a hard story to tell because it's got a lot of moving parts, and the campaign takes a bit longer and all this kind of stuff. So I decided I'll stick with crossing the Seine as my end point instead of the closing of the gap. Unfortunate, but maybe I can get to Calais another time, and Boulogne, and work my way up into the Shelled territory. But that's for another time. Which is drier. I think the summer is pretty dry. I mean, there's counts of that, right, in 44 of it being incredibly dry, right, with all the dust being kicked up. So that's July and August. So, but again, I don't know Normandy in the summer because I've never been. Was there in June, and the weather is not great. But that was a really abnormally bad season for rain. Like there was flooding all over northeastern France and Paris and all of that stuff. Like it was bad, and it only started to clear. And Dave was there. He was the tour leader, so it only started to clear when we got to Normandy, and then it came back again. But that's just Normandy in June, so maybe later. Yeah. Well, that must have covered a lot. 3 weeks. That's a lot. That's the dream, though, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, a lot surrendered in the Channel ports, right? Supposed to fight to the death, but clearly that did not happen in every case. Oh, thank you, Ghostwheel, and for support of the channel. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and then seeing Dunkirk would be cool. For obvious reasons, Operation Dynamo, but also afterwards, right? Because Dunkirk holds out for a long time. It'd be really cool. Yeah, and I've been to Dieppe as well. It's mind-boggling when you get there and you get on the beach, the main beach there at Dieppe proper, and look backwards. Right, if you get to the edge of the water there, without hopefully wiping out on all those rocks all over the place. I got mine somewhere around here. And then you look at the town, and then you look at the two headlands, and you're like, what the hell? I mean, I get the whole thing, the enigmas, pinch and all of that, and that's huge debate and all of this stuff. Still such a bad idea. and they knew it was a bad idea and still did it. Yeah, it's a bit heartbreaking. And then go visit the cemetery, which isn't too far outside of town, and it's even more heartbreaking. And all the footage of it, right, that the Germans took is propaganda. Again, it's just so many layers of things going on there with Yep. Yeah, I mean, you're right, right? It's the Oak Line battles, Bretteville and Puteaux and all of that stuff, which is why I want to cover them, right? Cover the Oak Line because it doesn't get talked about because D-Day, and then you're done. So it's cool that I get to do that and look at it as best as possible, and just even anything is better than nothing, right? Because we have nothing right now other than in books, which only doesn't engage everyone, right? Not everyone can sit and look at a book and look at a map and understand it, right? Sometimes people need the audio, the visual, both to understand it, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is cover that stuff. But well, everyone wants to talk about D-Day because it's harrowing and full of heroism, jumping off a boat and to the surf under machine gun artillery fire and coming back to Europe, blah blah blah, that good stuff. But it doesn't end obviously there, right? That's the beginning. That's nowhere even close to the end. Not the end of the story. So that's at least the mindset I'm taking with this. Sorry, you mean the other areas? Yeah, I mean, Very Rage gets lots of attention. Black Watch because of their high status in Canada. Maybe not anymore. They used to have a bigger status because of the makeup of the unit of being the Montreal Anglo elite. I mean, Anglo is in English speaking. That's what we mean in Canada when we say Anglo. But as Montreal was the city, right? Like a lot of countries have like their number one city, right? Known throughout the world. That Montreal was Canada's up until 70s. I don't know. I wasn't alive when this changed. It's Toronto now, right? Toronto's the biggest. It's the center of banking, and which Montreal used to be, and culture and all kinds of stuff. It was Montreal, so I think that had a big thing to do with it. And Montreal no longer being that city, that story, not lost, obviously, because the Black Watch still have lots of money and can still tell these stories more so than other units can, and still exist, right? Some of these units are gone. Not so much Normandy-wise, but Canada generally. Yeah, so it's covered a lot more. In Caen itself, I mean, there's controversy of Caen, and it's a big city, so it's got lots of attention for that matter, and all of that good stuff. With the liberation and the bombings and all of that stuff, it gets attention for that, and it's easy to get to, right? You can take a ferry from Britain to Caen. Yeah, that one I haven't been to. That'd be interesting to see. That's one of the things I do want to see. Oh, they're catching up, I think. Opinions on DF. Yeah, I just kind of shared briefly the operation. It was not well done. Was not too much moving parts, in my opinion. Like, I've looked at the objective lists of the various infantry battalions and the engineers, and everything they gave them to do was too much. And a lot of assumptions in a strict timetable that I think were impossible, even given the things they knew at the time. Because one of the things about Dieppe, and I think it gets lost a little bit, is Dieppe was very well known by the Brits before the war, because it had a casino that comes up in the battle, right? It was on the beach. It is no longer on the beach. There's still a casino. I think there's two now. I could be wrong. But it was right on the beach. So it was this important feature that plays into the battle, right? The Canadians, some of them, particularly the Rileys, use it to move further in, right? That said, there's the whole pinch thing, and whether you believe or not that Dieppe is because of the pinch, and that's the reason for the whole shebang, and whether that's important enough to throw a whole division at a fortified position that you should know better because a lot of people had already been there, right? It's not like the geography had changed. To me, it was a mistake, and we don't look at it that way in terms of Canada wanted to get its guys in the fight. They hadn't done much, really, of Hong Kong. That's it. You don't really have any shots of anger fired at all There's tiny little raids that don't go anywhere. They land and see nobody and turn around and go back to England. So this is the first chance they get to get into the fight, and this is something Canada wants. People tend to think Canada was forced to do this. That is the opposite. Canada wanted in, was supposed to be British units. Where Mountbatten wanted to use the commandos. It was a whole thing. The Canadians wanted in, so they threw in 2nd Division. They did train, and the operation was postponed or canceled when it was still called Rudder, Operation Rudder. The actual one going in August is Operation Jubilee. So, I mean, to me, and this is just my opinion, doesn't matter what was the driver of the raid. It wasn't worth it. Yes, cracking Enigma, whatever, honestly. They did it anyway. They did other things. They just didn't rely on DEP to crack Enigma. It was a mistake in that regard, but of course, that's Monday morning quarterbacking, right? So, I don't know, to me, just on the whole of it, if you look at what's going on pre-August 19th, 1942, to me, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but sometimes you got to do something when you've been booted off the continent over 2 years previous and haven't done much since then. And not even because of the whole Soviet Union argument, which is not true. It wasn't done to placate Stalin in any way, shape, or form. How a division spending 12 hours on the French beach is going to do anything to placate Stalin, I'll never understand. How people can make that argument when they're throwing army groups at each other on the Eastern Front. So, you know what I mean? That's my opinion. This is just my opinion. I haven't looked at it as deeply as others, but I've seen some documents that are interesting, and I can't find them in my computer. I need to get to those at some point. Oh, they do? Well, like, you mean local, right, Dave? Like, the town does their own ceremonies. Yeah. Yeah, and they do one for, and I'm going to Les Mis and El Patrie, another very much misunderstood fight. Another one I want to look at it more in depth. Yeah, I mean, yes, they a lot of them did, and it's harrowing to think about it in that way, right? How far they washed up, because the D-Day casualties are all over the place. I think the Juno Beach Center actually mapped that when they did their exhibit. They mapped that in the POWs, so it's really interesting to know. Let's talk about Operation Veritable. I'd love to talk more about Operation Veritable. Love to do more on it. Been to that place that all of this took place, and it's a fascinating battle. It's absolutely brutal. The conditions, and I was there again with Dave. Dave takes me places. And it was rainy, just like it would have been, not slushy, sleety like it was February 45, but the weather was not the best. So you get a little bit of a sense of what this is like, and a lot of it is unchanged, right? These towns haven't really spread too much. Some of them are bigger. Others were rebuilt, like Kalkar has been rebuilt, and Gotch has been rebuilt, and all of that stuff. Some of the stuff is still there, like Blackburn's, windmill, which is still operational in making bread, but the windmill part doesn't actually work because it's bolted in place, which is next to a functioning grocery store, which is in the middle of, oh God, this is going to be bad. Groesbeck? No, not Groesbeck. Anyway, where the 82nd Airborne lands. Yeah, Groesbeck. The middle of the town at the high ground, and it's still, you can see from there, if you're high up enough to see this. There are other spots where you can see it too, but it's literally laid out before you. And it's a fascinating one to me because of the multinational component of the 1st Canadian Army at the time, how this interplays in with the 9th Army, U.S. 9th Army, with Grenade. And now I finally found a historian who works on the 9th Army, so I can get in touch with him because he was on Woody's channel last week, I think, whenever that was. Yeah, and want to talk about him because there's some other people out there who want to look at Veritable and trying to cover the different nationalities and all this stuff. So maybe something for next year when we hit 2025, when this takes place. I don't know. You can always dream of what can come next, but it's an area I really enjoyed going to. Nijmegen was cool. Cool, great little town. Not little, it's not little. It's a great place. I liked it better than Amsterdam. There's your hot take. Yeah, 70s. I figured as much. Places started to move to Toronto, and Pearson International Airport, I think, has something to do with that. Yeah, very high seawall. Still is. The entire trip to Normandy is 7 days. And I'm going to be doing as much as possible. My first day I've got just wide open because I know things can be bad with planes. Trying to get out of Charles de Gaulle is a nightmare. So yeah, because I've been there twice now, and it's not the best airport. So I want to hit Rouen as much as I can, even if it's a few minutes. It's better than nothing, because there's amazing historical footage that I've used in a short. I had it longer, and it got demonetized because of violent content, because it's the destroyed vehicles and what's left after the Germans got stuck trying to cross the Seine. But so yeah, that's the first day, and then cover the beaches and then work my way inland. So try to do as much as I can. So I'm going before the anniversaries Overlord. I'll be going in April because the idea is to get the videos out in time. So I won't be visiting these sites around any time that's significant to the events. And that would take months, right? Literally from the 6th of June through to the end of August with the crossing of the Seine. It is what it is, and those times will be too expensive anyway. So I need to keep things cheap for all kinds of reasons. Any plans to Terracotta? No, not unfortunately, no. I don't know how to say this in a non-mean way. I mean, I could try. I know people who know him. I've met him once or twice. I had a couple of conversations with him. He's a very well-known, popular guy at conferences, right? So someone's always trying to talk to him. So it's hard to get a chat with him, just even briefly. I sat next to him at a dinner for a little bit. So got to talk a little bit. He asked me about my work. I was still working on a dissertation at the time. But anyway, yeah, super popular guy. So it's hard to pin him down, and he's not the best with tech. It's no blaming him at that age. So maybe we'll see. It's hard to do stuff with certain people of a certain age with online stuff. Yeah. Well, there's a good question. Not much. Harassing fire to vessels. I don't know. England had them. Britain had them too, right? Coastal guns. Mostly about shipping, but yeah. They're not known for their accuracy. But the ones actually in Britain were used to support operations in channel ports. Yeah, I'm expecting pouring rain all the time. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want to be too committal of like, I'm going to do this and this. It's going to be, I'll do what I can because this is the only time I can go, but anything is better than nothing. Right. So that's the plan. Yeah, I don't think if I miss any questions, you can fire away. I'm just going to stay for a bit longer. I've got some stuff to do. See if I missed anything. Yeah, other than that, I'm excited to go. Yeah, very excited to go. Obviously, I guess I could talk about that. Is next video, I'm going to start to finish maybe next week. I'm looking at the 1st Special Service Force, so also more popularly known as the Devil's Brigade. I'm looking at a particular day that they fought in Anzio and the bridgehead for 2 reasons that I'm not going to say why, but it'll be pretty clear when I do them. So I'm trying to finish that because I will be going on World War II TV on the 24th, I think, to look at it generally, like bigger thing. Broad strokes. I'm not going to talk too much about the unit because it's been done to death. I want to look at what's going on in Anzio, and I have some conclusions that some people might not like, but that's not different for me, is it? Never hold back in my opinion. No, there you go. March 2023, and it was fine. Yeah, that's what I mean, right? You never know. It's wild. Normandy's all over the place. You never know. So walkabouts. So that's a good question. I plan to, yes. We'll see. I know because Woody's done this, right? He's done some of them. When he first started his channel, he did a lot of these live on location, and sometimes it's not the best. I mean, I did one with him. I think it's just because the number of people there, because it was D-Day. It was the anniversary of D-Day. So the signal can give it a choppy. Also depends on who you're using. So I'm going to get one of those eSIM cards because it's the best deal. It's pretty cheap. Super cheap, actually. So I'm going to see what I can do in terms of data. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I won't promise anything, no Oscars won for cinematography or anything like that. But I'll have a new phone by then. So hopefully it's pretty good in terms of the camera and everything. I mean, they're all 4K now, but I do. And some of the lesser ones, I think, is the plan. Even just briefly. Like I had vision of Les Mis Patrie, right? Because it's so misunderstood. Even if I can just get somewhat of the layout captured in some way, shape, or form, I think that'll be helpful to understand that one a little bit better and what happened there and, all that stuff. Maybe some others. I don't know. We'll have to see. But other than that, yeah. So that's the big stuff. Normandy. After I get that first Special Service Force video done, that's it. So there probably won't be anything from the channel from that wise. Maybe a couple small videos about stuff that just pops in my head when I get a minute, which happens sometimes. I was doing that today. Hope I can get that out soon. Anyway, yeah. That might happen. I hope not. Yeah, I don't claim to have the best track record when it comes to my, what's the word I'm looking for, stability when it comes to walking. Hey, I made it through the last battlefield tour without wiping out, so that was fine. But I do climb things that I'm probably not supposed to. I go into ditches and stuff like that. Maybe I should do that less. Probably won't, but I do that. Yeah, yeah, try not to, but it may happen. There may be social media updates where I wiped out, and because I just walk wherever. I don't really care, especially when I'm dirty. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. Yeah, and I've been to the American Cemetery. It's interesting to see. People would like me to go. We'll see if I can get there because I want to get to Omaha, like I was saying earlier. But yeah, it's a big one. It's a big cemetery, massive. This is different, right, than the Commonwealth. Getting worse. If the smaller ones, right, there's some larger ones, obviously, but they're more concentrated right here with the American one. It's massive because it's all the concentration, as far as I know, or purposefully done. People sometimes just slip through the cracks. Happens. But yeah, so it's a big one, and I've been there, and it's a sight to be seen, and it's right near the beach. So yeah. Sorry, Susan, what do you mean? No Woody and Dr. Blood repeats, like where they've been, you mean? Is that what you mean? I don't think I'll be repeating much of what they've done. Maybe some areas around Con, because I know they did some. Yeah, like looking at areas south of Con, especially up before Barrier Ridge, that was done. But yeah, I don't think so. Maybe it'll be better. I don't know. I've not heard great things about the data connections in Normandy, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm trying to do my own thing in my own way. But yeah, other than that. Oh, it's a famous incident. I am not sure what you're talking about. Please tell me. I want to know now. Yeah, I'm confused. Anyway. Yes. So thanks everyone for the support for 10K. That is pretty cool. We're still marching our way forward. I'm just checking what it's at right now. Woohoo, 16 more. Well, send me a link. Oh, thank you, Sam. I'm so confused, but that's okay. Not the first time or the last. Yeah, so thank you. It means a lot. Any more questions, you can go away. I can still get a few more minutes. Yeah, thanks everyone for supporting the channel through YouTube memberships, Patreon. I need a few more of those for the long term would be great. Good to go through this project. I bet they fell probably. Heard Woody's wiped out with pastries. I think it was said it was in Bretteville. So yeah, so thanks everyone. It's both. Is light a wave or apart? It's both, isn't it? I don't know. I'm not that kind of doctor. So yeah, so if you already are a patron, sorry, or a channel member, thank you. If you could bump up, that would be great. You don't have to. Love to get some new people. If you could help spread the word about the channel and what we're trying to do here, and trying to bring you a Canadian perspective and looking at the Canadian stuff a little deeper, and some of my other thoughts, obviously, that are connected to military history. That'd be great. Any support you can give is helpful for the long term. I mean, 10K is pretty cool. It's not enough to keep everything running, though. That's the issue I'm facing is the long-term viability. I've talked about this before. Trying to keep this going past the Normandy project, because that's where I'm at right now. Just try to be, as I always try to be with you guys, honest. Open as honest as I can be. I have until the end of this project. We'll see. But if this project doesn't do what I hope it does, we'll see. It'll have to vastly change, I imagine. Content will probably go down to a trickle, maybe a live stream every now and again. I would love to do this more, not less. So any support anyone out there can give is helpful. Even if just watching videos with the ads on makes a big difference. Yeah, so yeah, and yes, it's more bring more, which is true. Oh, wrong one. More, yeah, hopefully that's the thinking. 10,000 seems to be a threshold for other things like sponsorships and things I need like that. Just hey, why? What did we do? But yes, thank you. What did we do? Yeah. Thank you for the 10K. It means a lot. I've been working hard at this, so I want to keep working hard on it and bringing these stories, and allow other people to bring these stories too. Right? It's not just me. Can cover this stuff for other people. Right? Sometimes these people don't have an outlet, and I try to give as many people as outlet as possible with a broad understanding of military history. So that's another goal of mine. Keep that rolling. Not trying to change that anytime soon. And Canadian manufacturing, yeah, another one I've been thinking about too. But that'll have to be very much on the back burner moving forward. Did a little bit looking at that. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to look at, and it's a fascinating element to Canada's war that it touched more families, I think, in a lot of ways than even the combat portion or the military portion, quote unquote. With way more people involved in the manufacturing for the war effort, for the entirety of the Allied war effort. I mean, it's in one of Tim Cook's books. Again, it's not overall, like it's overall, so it doesn't mean like tanks and stuff. But Canada outproduced all three of the Axis combined in the war. Like they're producing more weapons of war than all three of them combined for the entirety of the conflict, which is just bonkers when you add that in with what the Americans are able to do on their own, what the Brits are able to do on their own, and with the Soviets. So it's wild. Yeah, so it's crazy stuff. But yeah, I'd love to get that better known and get people in Canada to know this better. Sorry, tangent here. But it touches, like I said, so many people, but there's so many places in Canada where this takes place, right? Like some trendy neighborhoods in Toronto were manufacturing areas for the war, like John Inglis, where they made the Bren guns, right? With the Bren gun girl and the famous, ones that were made for the Chinese nationalists and all this stuff, like is all done there. And it's in this trendy neighborhood in Toronto now. And across the country, there's all these manufacturers for the war effort. And most people have no idea. And it's kind of like the British Air training plan, right? British Commonwealth Air training plan. Places are all over. Most people have no idea. People use these places and go these places and have no clue. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the CMPs are a big one, and those make a huge difference in North Africa and in the Soviet Union. And this picture is Operation Spring, for anyone wondering. Very Ridge, famous photo from it. Yeah, it's mind-boggling the impact that those have and the reach that those have. Those also go to the Chinese as an example of the spread of this stuff. It's absolutely wild. Yeah, try to cross-pollinate as much as possible. and go on other channels and other, podcasts and whatever, as much as I can with the time I have. So yeah, if anybody has suggestions, I'm open to them. If you want to send them to me afterwards as well. Oh, that's cool. I'm glad to hear it. I think YouTube is great for this, for connection and community. Some other stuff, I'm not a big fan, but this part is the best part. The community and shared interests, and it can be anything, right? With the niche interest you can have, it can be the most broad-based thing ever, pop culture, or a certain movie or a certain TV series that no one else has ever heard of. You will find people who are interested in it. And that's one of the great things about YouTube. I love it. You can do what you want now. And it doesn't just have to be what other people want. Can't say much about that. Oh, geez. What other wars were Canada involved in? Canada as a country, or Canada generally speaking? I mean, you have tons of colonial conflicts right through to the first white people who show up, who are actually the Norse, the Vikings. They show up and more or less we think they get killed. Right through French, English fighting each other, other countries, 7 Years' War, all those colonial conflicts, up 1812. There's rebellions in the 1830s. 1840s is pretty clear of stuff. 1850s, not so much. 1860s, you see the Fenians, threats of an American invasion from the American proper, not just these drunken Irishmen. That's a joke. Everyone calm down. I have Irish ancestry. Calm down. French Canadian. We all have Irish ancestry at some point or another. These veterans mostly of the Civil War fighting to try and take Canada. That's a whole other crazy story. It's on YouTube. It's not covered as well as I would like, or in the way I would do it. But again, it's all the timing thing. And then you have the rebellion or resistance in the 1880s, and then you move through to the world wars and stuff in the 20th century. Canadian stole my first girlfriend. It makes you feel it's always the boyfriend or girlfriend up in Canada, right? That's the joke. Sorry. Yeah, there's not that many of us. So what are the odds of that happening? Good alternative to monetizing with YouTube. Patreon is the best I've found because it's easy to do. I mean, the fees are going up a little bit, which I'm not a fan of. That's the best way to help me. If you want to help me continue to do this in the best way possible is to become a patron. Go through there. Also, you can do a PayPal directly. That's less fees as well. That really, really helps continue that on. So it's hard, right? A lot of people this is a big topic of conversation in the YouTube. Thanks, Rainier, for you coming out and hanging out. Just a few more minutes left for everybody else here. Sorry, what was I saying? Oh, right. This is a big thing within the creator community. They're talking about a lot of people are moving away from YouTube for all kinds of reasons. A lot of military historian channels have running into some censorship issues, which obviously hurts the money coming in. And these people have like staffs and stuff to support, which I don't. You're looking at the operation right now. Literally, this is the room where it's all done. I say that a lot, but I think it's still funny. So they're moving away. Some have built their own platforms and working together. They're like subscription based though. So for those who can't afford to do it, to watch, don't get it. Don't get everything. I try to keep everything as free and open as possible, which is what YouTube is good for. But it's hard when they're demonetizing videos seemingly at random. I've had that happen. Woody has that happen all the time. Other channels have it. JD, if he's still kicking around. Has had it happen multiple times across multiple platforms. It's hard to know what the line is and where the rules are when they change. It's like a moving target. So it's difficult. But anyway, you can get any amount as a Patreon makes a huge difference. PayPal, it's all very helpful, especially with the Normandy stuff. I got to pay off on my credit card. Accommodations and food and car to cover these battles is not going to be cheap. So any help is appreciated. Yes, Halifax explosion, heartbreaking story. I have a video on the channel if you want to watch it now, especially if you got nothing else going on after this. The aftermath. It's only about 9 minutes long, but it's striking that the footage that they took of Halifax, and it's because that's in December, and I think this footage is from January, maybe late December. It's hard to say. It doesn't say, but everything's covered in snow, right? So think about all those people who lost their homes that were literally flattened, right? Whole neighborhoods are gone. They're stuck in this. They're living in tents in a Canadian winter in 1918. That sounds awful. And it shows like the relief efforts that the Americans did. Like there's American Red Cross there. At least that's what's shown in the video. I know there was the Navy came to help and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's heartbreaking to see that footage. I mean, I think anyone got to be drunk to think any sort of plan like that would work. I think it has nothing to do with Irish nationality. I know you're joking too, Chris, but and I sent you a message. Answer me back on Patreon. Unless you already did, then ignore me. Yeah, it's just a wild plan to think that you can take Canada to trade it for Ireland with a handful of people based in like Chicago and Buffalo, and it just did not work. And the one major clash, the Fenians actually do win at Ridgeway. They don't do anything with it. They're so disorganized, they can't do anything. Their supplies get cut off, and because the American government stops them from getting stuff, even though they just let this continue, even though they knew it existed. It's tragic and it's hilarious, and it's something I'd love to dig into in the future. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you got that book. It's fascinating, heartbreaking, angering, everything. And yes, Amazon helps anything, right? Because if you click on the link and then you buy something on Amazon, I get credit for it. So that is definitely helpful to keep things going. And I do just try to recommend books generally because it's what I know, right? What I do as a historian. But yeah, there's tons of great stuff out there, and anything like that helps in the smallest way possible. It should just be OTD military history. If you just put that in, you just Google OTD military history Patreon, it'll pop up. Learned about the bigger than Beirut, one of the biggest of all time. Still, even with the atomic explosions, it was massive. There's a picture in the video that I have of the mushroom cloud, because it's an ammo ship running into each other, and then there's an explosion later on in the Second World War. Not as big, but this is one of the biggest explosions of all time. Massive, absolutely massive. And just the way Halifax is laid out, right? It's a natural harbor with hills, so this whole explosion just flattened the city. And it took a long time for the city to come back, and lots of work, and there's a war going on, and it was still a major port being used even after the explosion, and all this stuff. It's just an absolutely wild story, and so many tragic things happened to that. And for those of you who know, there's a Heritage Minute about it, and that one's very well done. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the Americans invading Canada were more of a danger to themselves at the time. Yes, and well, even causing division within the U.S. Right? I mean, small but enough. And this goes on. It leads to some crazy situations. I did a video from the locale, because I'm not too far from it, on the St. Lawrence River, of sort of inspired by the Fenian idea, but it's much earlier. But there's kind of the rebellion as well of Americans coming across the St. Lawrence, taking a mill, the Battle of the Windmill, not Animal Farm, Battle of the Windmill. And the Royal Navy, the U.S. Navy, and the Canadian militia all working together to take these guys out. And it's on the channel, Battle of the Windmill. Windmill's still there. It was used as a lighthouse for decades. How this happened and how this all fits together. It's wild, how porous that Canadian-U.S. border is when it comes to fighting. This whole idea of this peaceful border is just not true. Yeah, there's a couple of sites because there's a couple of clashes over the years. Ridgeway is the big one. Trying to think of a few more. One outside Montreal, and there's one. Oh, geez, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, anyway, getting through Normandy is fantastic. Can't recommend it enough. All right. Other than that, I think I'll wrap up now. But yeah, if anyone is not becoming a patron or YouTube channel member, or any support you can give, like bugging people on social media to watch my videos, is also intensely helpful. Anything you can do of that nature is much appreciated. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Good day. Hitting 10K was a big goal of mine for 2023. Hit it 17 days later. That's not too bad. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Pretty proud of that. I know it's nothing. Small beer on here, but still pretty cool. And that I can get this many people interested in Canadian military history. And yeah, so thanks, James, for that. And Susan, everybody, Bruce, everybody. I can see the names of Andreas. Everyone's still sticking out with me until the end here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Couldn't have done it without you. Again, this is the mushy stuff. The community is what if I ever stop doing this, or when this ends, whatever that time may be, will be the thing I will miss the most. Yeah, love the community, love you guys, and the support you give and everything you do for me and everybody. Sheila, thank you. Yeah, it's great, and I can't say enough thank you. For what you guys have done for me. Means the world. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your, what do we have, Wednesday now? I don't even know. This week's been wild. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. And tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern time. So that's 8 p.m. Paris, 7 p.m. in the UK. I'm going to have Romain. A lot of you know him from social media and from Woody. To talk about his experiences as a tour guide in Normandy. So I'll see everybody then tomorrow. Other than that, have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.